No.
Mofe Wyse, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So as you guys can see, I have some amazing, gorgeous women here with me today. We are all students at law school. We're all 2Ls at law school. But before we get into the content we have today, I'm going to have them introduce themselves. They're going to say their names, where they're from, and what type of law they want to practice.
I'm Jasmine. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and right now I'm interested in litigation, not sure exactly where that'll take me.
I'm Haley, and I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm still figuring it out.
I'm Jalen. I'm from Dallas. I have an interest in business law and a passion for environmental law.
Hi, I'm Ayana Brown. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm also interested in civil litigation.
Hi, my name is Raven. I'm from Hampton, Virginia, and have an interest in criminal and family law.
And you guys know my name is Mofe, like I said. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria, and I am uncertain about what area of law I want to go into. So let's get into today's video. So today, I brought this lovely women on my channel to really talk about their experiences as law school students. I really wanted you guys to have, a different perspective and hear the perspective of law school students from different parts of the country. So I'm going to be asking them a bunch of questions. It's going to be very conversational, and let's get started. How did you know what area of law you wanted to go into?
Start.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So I think I don't necessarily know exactly where or what type of law I want to go into, but I definitely think that in law school, when you have opportunities to take different classes, do different internships and those things, if you find a place that you like, then just follow through with that opportunity until you don't like it anymore, and then you find something else. So for me, I came in wanting to do criminal justice and criminal law, and I did an internship in litigation, and I decided that, hey, maybe this is what I want to do. So,
On that same train of thinking, I guess, for me it was more so the classes. I came in, I was like, yes, I'm going to do environmental law. Environmental justice is so awesome. And then when I started planning my schedule, it got corporate really fast. I started taking a lot of business courses, and they were fun. So I definitely incorporated that into my job search.
To give a different perspective, I came in wanting to do criminal law, and I still want to do criminal law.
Hey.
I think I had some personal things in my life that kind of made me more passionate about it, so I think I haven't lost that passion, and I discovered in law school that I do like litigation, and I do somewhat enjoy public speaking, so it's definitely kind of pushed me still towards kind of being a criminal lawyer.
For me, I did debate in undergrad, so I knew I was okay with public speaking in the courtroom, so I knew that I wanted to do criminal law after watching it on TV. However, I got into my legal writing course 1L year, and I found out I love to write, and I was like, criminal lawyers, they kind of don't write a lot, so I'm like, maybe let me try civil litigation too. So that's what I'm doing with my summer this summer, is figuring out if criminal law or civil law is right for me.
And I feel like I started the same way. I started with criminal, and then I realized maybe that might not be the area for me. I still don't know what the area is for me, and hopefully this summer I figure it out. Okay, so if there was one thing you wish you knew before starting 1L year, what would it be? Or if there was one thing you could tell a student that was in your position before 1L, what would you tell them?
I guess I'll take this one. If I could go back and think about the time I spent prepping for the LSAT and just learning how to take that test specifically, I would tell my 1L self that that is exactly what you'll be doing, but tailored to the professor in the class. So it's very strategic in how you take the test and how the professor administers the test. So the whole semester you're learning how to take that professor's final exam. So that's what I tell myself. Professor can truly make or break you.
Yeah.
And the curve is a whole other beast in itself.
Let's
so
talk about the curve.
Okay.
So what
Talk
is
about
the
it.
curve in law school? Because I feel like a lot of people don't really know what a curve is. And I didn't know because I remember LARW.
Yeah.
I looked it up on YouTube.
I got my brain back.
It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah. just know that if it's kind of like Lord of the Flies, like you're all pitted against each other. Your success depends on another's failure, essentially. So the only it's true. There's only so many A's that can go around. There's so many B's that can go around, and there's so many people that can pass the class. And so you will fall into one of those categories. Our school does the plus-minus system, which is, in my opinion, even worse because now you're not even fighting for just a B, you're fighting for a B+. You're fighting for that A-, and there's not very many that can go around, and depending on the class, the curve might be tighter depending on your school's academic policies. Ours is, I think, pretty high.
Yeah.
I think another thing too to add to the curve, like I guess a positive part is like when you, so basically what your grade in undergrad, if you're like taking a test, right, what you score is your grade. But I guess, so maybe not a nice way to say it, but just maybe easier to like understand. In law school, your grade is not necessarily your grade. So like Haley was saying, it's dependent on what other people get in the class. So like you may score a C on the test, but if everybody else scored an F, then you probably got a like B+ or an A in the class, right? Or vice versa. So if you scored a C and then everybody scored higher, or that's what everybody scored, that's kind of where you sit along the curve. So
it's all relative to your peers.
yes.
It really is. And with finals, if you have a final that's like super hard, the curve can help you. But if you have a final that's maybe not as hard, the curve could hurt you. So it just depends. And I feel like that also goes into the curve affects like the competitive nature of law school, but we're gonna get into that in a second. But yeah, if there's one thing you wish you knew before starting 1L, what would it be?
There are free supplements. Like, look for those free supplements. Sometimes the textbook is convoluted and you cannot figure out for the life of you what a concept means. West Academic, I'm not a rep. But West Academic has a ton of free resources. Your library likely will also have a ton of free resources. And then if you're involved in any student organizations, you can ask if they have a supplemental locker and use those as well. I know we do. Shout out to Bolsa.
On that same thread, outlines. I had no clue. I could look at somebody's outline of the class before me, and I will say that's helped me a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Just to add to that, I would also say like when you get in like your first year of law school and you're starting, teachers are going to assign like all this stuff to read. You do not have to read every single thing that they're saying. Like you have to read, you have to learn from the teacher what is important, like what they look for. So like civil procedure, we would get assigned like, I don't know, 200 pages a night, and I'd be up like 3 hours of sleep, and like the next day I can't even tell you what I read. So like I learned though that like we focus mainly on the rules. So I'm gonna focus on the rules when I'm reading, and I'm gonna focus on the facts that support those rules. All the extra little history in this, I don't really need to know that, outside of the case. So I think for me that was like what I wish I would have known is like don't take everything that they're saying to like heart. Like I've got to read every single detail of this and know this because that's impossible.
Yeah.
And I feel like as the 1L, you start off like just really wanting to read every single thing. But then you learn we're not encouraging not reading for classes.
No.
But you learn that you have to be, I guess, more efficient because you do have like 100 pages for some classes. And you can't read everything. It's just not possible. I don't think it's possible. So you just have to be more efficient and know what actually is important. But as you go through law school, you do learn what is important and what isn't exactly like required for a final.
For me, I would add to that is when I think about telling my 1L self coming in, it's just saying that you are good enough and you are smart enough and you belong here. And I think in 1L year, especially that first semester, I had bad imposter syndrome. Like, oh my gosh, I came from a state school. I don't know anybody in law school. That it was like, can I get a good grade? Am I going to beat this curve? But honestly, if you work hard, it doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, it will show on that test. And you will get that good grade based off the effort that you put in. So I would just think the whole time that you're here for a reason.
Yeah. And I feel like nobody knows what they're doing. You think everybody knows what they're doing and you think everybody has it figured out, but a lot of people are literally, we're all in the same position. like we're all taking the classes for the first time, so we really don't know what we're doing. We're all just trying to. What is the one thing you heard about law school before you came in that turned out to be true, or the one thing you heard that turned out to be false?
Cold calling. It's real, it exists. You will get cold called. I can't say that every single professor will cold call you in a day. Some professors do cold calling systems differently. And again, like, know your professor, know what they expect. But yeah, I was sitting in class today hoping I didn't get cold called. And sometimes that fear doesn't go away. And sometimes you want to get cold called because you know you prepared. You know you got a great answer. So that's something that's true. As of something that's false, I think the like vicious, competitive nature of what the media depicts it to be is false. I think everybody is struggling in their own way. I think that some people show it more than others. But as far as like the hiding books or the like, y'all tell me. Yeah, like that's crazy. Like we're legally blonde, but also that's like a different era because now we're all on, technology. So a lot of your material is online, on campus. But yeah, that's not true. I think it can be competitive in other ways, not necessarily academic, but ambitions can be competitive. A lot of people are gunning for the same spot, and you're with every single local class president of their high school, of their university, and everybody wants to be the next president or Supreme Court justice. So I think personalities can be competitive, and if you're used to being the number one and in the center of attention, then get ready for a rude awakening because you're not the only diamond that shines, and that's okay. That's okay.
That's okay. And I feel like, especially what you said about cold calls, I feel like depending on the professor, it can be very intense. Some professors, they just want, I don't know, a fact or your opinion about something, and other professors want every single fact in the case. And like we said, you just have to learn your professor's teaching style. But with the competitiveness, I feel like I've been blessed to be surrounded by people who I don't feel the competition of law school. Like, I don't feel like I'm in competition with my friends. We're not competing against each other, but if I was to surround myself around other people, I feel like it's possible. It's possible that people like hide outlines or don't want to share outlines. And for those who don't know, outlines are just like, I guess, the key takeaways from like all you've learned throughout the semester. And that's basically what you use to study. That I think, depending on the people you have around you, and that's why it is essential to have a great support system where you don't feel that competition because you're already, stressed out about, worrying about like, are you supposed to be here? Are you meant to be here? And you don't need the added stress of other people wishing on your downfall because they want to beat you or whatever.
Oh, one thing I heard about law school that turned out to be false was I talked to a judge once, and she was valedictorian at in her year of law school, and she horrified me and told me that basically, you have our exams right, you all get a grade. She was like, the professor would post their exam grade with their name to it on their door. And that's how you figure, and then for rankings, everything.
There's no violation.
Your name is on thing.
No,
and she was like, everybody would run up and be like, where am I? Where am I? Where am I?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wouldn't be able to do that.
And she was like, the people at the bottom were kind of exiled.
Yeah. That's terrible.
That is very terrible.
But she was like, this was like back in like probably like the 80s and 90s, where like it was just a different culture. Where it was just hyper competitive.
No,
Yeah.
that would make my stomach.
Well, that's how it was on Legally Blonde. She was looking for it on the posting. I really didn't think it was gonna be like, you don't know people's grades unless they volunteer that information.
Right.
And there's certain people that choose to volunteer that information.
Yeah.
So that just leads me into another good question. Is law school what TV shows show law school is? Is that accurate? Is it an accurate depiction of law school?
It depends on what shows you're watching.
Okay, like
How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah.
No.
I wish that what law school was. I want to do it all and practice it.
One
clinic experience where you're actually working with your supervising professor on the type of work that they do, but never murder. You do not start off with murder. You're starting off with misdemeanors at best. So
Not going to serial killer houses.
yeah, what? No, but it makes for great TV.
Yeah, it does.
But do you think the cold calls, like Annalise's
How she
cold
does.
calls, or like any professors you've experienced?
There may be a teacher or two where they're like, you know, gonna like call us out. But I mean, I don't know. Most of the teachers I've had, with the exception of few, they don't even ask for like cold calls. Like it's just like more volunteers, or not. They don't ask for cold calls, but you know what I mean. Like it's mainly just volunteers. But you know, Mofe and I are in a class right now where he just cold calls everybody in the class. You know, every single class period. So you have that, but yeah.
What helped you get through 1L year emotionally and academically?
Honestly,
Everybody said.
having them around me honestly helped me get through 1L year. Like just having a support system where you're not alone. Because I feel like if you go through law school alone, you're gonna feel it, and you're gonna feel like you're the only one who's feeling this pain, who's feeling behind, who's feeling like they don't understand. So I was talking to them and like, hey, did you get what the hell went on? Nope.
Yeah.
And they were like, no. So it made me feel like so much more comfortable with, okay, so it's normal. I'm fine. I'm gonna get there. Definitely validated.
And especially with reading cases, like some cases are just, it takes a couple times to read a case, and after you've tried to read it a couple times, if you don't get it, you don't get it. Like you're just not gonna get it. But I feel like with reading cases, just knowing, okay, I'm not dumb, like that case was hard and they're not speaking English. Like I think that's, they're really not.
No, to add to that, they don't speak English.
Yeah.
Like if you see a case from 1950 and back, it's like they did not know how to write, and you're not gonna understand it.
They spoke so different in those days.
Wrote different.
Grammar
Communicated
different.
everything.
way different.
So in that law, like you'll learn very quickly that American jurisprudence is over 200 years old. So you're gonna be reading cases that are very old, and you do need to like understand. If like my best advice is, you don't understand a word, look it up.
Yeah.
Dictionary.com is free. Google
Yeah.
is free. You know, look it up and like help yourself. And then go to that. If you still don't understand, go to that professor in office hours.
Yes.
Like, office hours is also another thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's key. It's key. Learning your professor, getting to know them.
I don't know. I was saying, adding to office hours, look up the case brief. You can
Somebody would have told me that.
I
Definitely
know
me.
maybe.
Yeah.
You are not the first person to
Yeah.
do that.
Somebody figured it out.
Somebody definitely wrote it out and put it in English for you.
Right. That's
Very
what
plain.
I was just gonna add to what Haley said. Like I would try looking up words, but if every word doesn't make sense, it just doesn't make sense. And case briefs are super helpful. Yeah.
Quimby.
Yes, Quimby.
Yes.
I was gonna also say for me, it was like I'm like a very social person, and at first law school was just like it just gets a little overwhelming at first just because it's new. And for me, it was like I was starting to lose my mind by like not having social interaction.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was like, you know what? For 2 hours out of this week, like on a Saturday, I'm gonna like go to brunch with a friend because I like brunch, you know? Or I'm gonna catch up with my girls here, my other friends. Like, you know, like I think doing things like that and like being social or just connecting, even if you're not a social person, with like people, like outside people who want to do things other than law school, like these girls, your family, your other friends, like do it because it keeps you sane, like you're like a normal person.
Yeah. Emotionally and academically, I feel like the support system, like the support is real. And not just even people in law school, but people also outside of law school, like having supportive family members and things like that. Because you are gonna have times when you don't have time to call people. You don't have time to call your friends outside of law school. And just having friends and family that do understand you're in this tough position in life. And it does take a lot of time, but knowing that they understand what you're going through and they're not faulting you for it. So I think that's another thing. What is one habit you had to develop?
Learning how to read.
Yeah.
How to breathe. But sometimes you read so fast. It's like, oh, I get this. you're 2 paragraphs through and it's like, dang, I have not summarized this for my notes and I'm gonna forget it by Wednesday.
Yeah.
For me, it was definitely time management. I feel like a lot of people have the same experience. Like an undergrad, you didn't have to necessarily devote hours upon hours upon hours to school. Now I have to, and that was a big struggle. And I have to figure out really how to create my own schedule and stick to a schedule.
Yeah, discipline.
Girl, I was gonna say that.
Discipline, wow. Because, I mean, most of the time, if you're, ambitious enough to dream about going to law school, then maybe school kind of came a little bit more easy to you in a way. Like, you enjoyed being in school, you enjoyed learning, you enjoyed getting to know your teacher, your instructor. Law school kind of sucks the joy out of school, if I'm gonna be honest. Like, but I know she's gonna have a caveat, but I definitely feel like, for me at least, learning how to, school is your number one devotion, and it's not the easiest, most carefree thing that you've done, that you're doing. It takes hard work and effort. I think that a lot of us got through school very effortlessly, and that's why we are in the place that we are now. But law school tries you, for sure.
Yeah.
It's different.
And I was gonna say, so our schedule, 1L year, we either had no classes on Fridays or no classes on Mondays. Those aren't free days. They are not free days, and you have to push yourself, get up at a certain time, you have to read for classes, because it does take a while learning how to read the material. You're gonna have to read cases a bunch of times for you to understand it. That takes a lot of time. But I think just teaching yourself to wake up at a certain time, because me, personally, I was a wake up at 12 type of person, wake up late in the day. I'm still a late night person. I'm not an early morning person, but I really have to teach myself, listen, if you want to have certain results, you have to put in the work. And I think discipline really comes into that.
Knowing how to say no sometimes
Say
to those
no.
brunches.
Yeah.
But self-care is important, but like knowing how to say no, especially I'm local.
Okay, I was gonna say 1L is probably boring because you don't get to pick your classes. For the most part, everything is very foundational and it builds upon the classes you'll take in the future. But for me personally, it just wasn't as fun as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
2L year, baby, I'm having a blast. I'm picking my own classes that I'm actually interested in. I'm somewhat familiar with the professors that I'm signing up for, so it's just a better overall experience for 2L. But I will say one thing I had to learn coming into law school was it's not good enough to just understand the material. You have to know it.
Yeah.
And that factors into your final grade, because in undergrad, of course, your grade is your grade. You're not being graded relative to your peers. Whereas law school, again, back to the curve, if you kind of know the material, you're kind of gonna get a B-. So you need to, you really have to know it. You really have to work hard for those A's. They don't come easy. So just for me personally, I wish I would have put more effort into really knowing the material instead of thinking, oh, okay, yeah, sure, like I understand this, and moving on.
Social life in law school, is it possible?
Yes. You have to make time for it. Full disclosure, I had a whole dating life in law school. I was going on dates, I was going out, I was going to dinner. You gotta have time for it, and if you prioritize yourself accordingly, you can have a life. But now, caveat, don't waste all your time going out, because your grades will show that you wasted all your time going out. But so you can just prioritize. Make sure, like me personally, I know I take my weekends free to time with my boyfriend, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I tend to load up pretty heavy on those, and I'm in the library all day. You just gotta figure out how to work your schedule around it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Be very intentional. Sometimes I have like a schedule starting off the week, and the next thing you know, me and my fiance decide, let's go swimming at midnight. And it's like, oh, I was getting up at 8 o'clock. So it's like my whole week will have to change based off that. So I think you have to be very flexible. When you set something getting done that week, you should still get it done. You should just change the time you get it done. And that allows you to be more flexible and to say yes to going out, to say yes to doing different things.
Yeah, I think also it is possible, but it's also very important. Law school is going to be there, your work is going to be there, but it's definitely, especially if you're a socialite, it's important to schedule personal time or time with your friends because you need a break. At some point, law school will consume your life if you let it, and you need to be very cognizant of that. And like Mofe said, she schedules everything for her schoolwork, but go ahead and schedule some personal time or some social events. It's very crucial to your mental health.
Yeah, and I feel like I said earlier, sometimes we don't have classes Fridays or Mondays. This semester I don't have classes Fridays and Wednesdays, but Wednesdays are typically still the same, like it's still busy and stuff like that. But my Thursday nights are like everybody else's Friday nights. I do not do nothing. We're recording this video on Thursday night. This is a social thing. It's like me relaxing and doing stuff that I actually enjoy, and I'm not doing schoolwork on Thursday night. I'm just not.
I think a good tip that like people often say in law school that like should make you say yes to going out is that even the last person in your class at the bottom of the curve is a lawyer at the end of the day. So say yes, because in the end of the day, 3 years from now, it won't matter whether you got a B plus or a B minus. Like, but those 3 years, you're gonna remember like, were you depressed, were you happy? So focus on that. Focus on being happy and having your mental health.
I feel like a good way to look at it is that I've heard some people say they treat law school like a 9 to 5. So we're like from 9 to 5, they're in law school, 5 o'clock hits, they clock out and they live their life. And I feel like for some people that could be a good way of kind of creating that balance between law school and your personal life.
Yeah, it definitely could be a 9 to 5, but like a flexible 9 to 5. Because I was gonna say like if you have 8 hours and you're just doing stuff all 8 hours, it could be an hour here, an hour there. As long as you get the 8 hours in and you actually accomplish stuff. Let's talk about applying for jobs in summer. So when did y'all start applying for jobs as 1Ls? How did you know what job to apply for? Were there any pressures, social pressures in applying for jobs? So tell me about that.
I can start. So yeah, for me, I think I was like coming into, when it was time to apply for jobs, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna focus on what I think I want to do, which at the time was criminal justice reform work, right? So anything around criminal law, but I still didn't really know where, so I just started like finding different opportunities and applying. But I think the best advice is to just open up, right? Like your mind and like what you like, just open it up and apply everywhere. Because that's how I got the internship that I got as a 1L. So I never thought I wanted to do big law at all, and I actually ended up applying for a big law internship as a 1L summer associate, and I ended up getting the job. And I actually got 2 opportunities at 2 different places, and that was something that I never even thought that like, oh, like I could do this, because I would hear people in class that maybe don't look like me that are talking about this, and they're like, oh, like just very confident about it, and I'm like, okay, just kind of shying away from it, like, I don't really think I can do that, and that's not what I want to do, just kind of making excuses. But it wasn't until I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna apply for it, and I got it, and that's how I'm like, okay, I actually like it, and I'll be returning again this summer as a second-year law student. So definitely, you just don't know, and like keep your options open. I guess that's my advice. And don't be discouraged, because like for me, I literally didn't get that job until I want to say like around this time last year. So like around April, and like a lot of the other 1Ls had already known what they were doing. They already got their jobs, and I was like still trying to figure it out. But I just tried to like, stay faithful, just believe in myself and my ability, and it worked out. So just have faith in yourself and open your options and just apply to things, because you're not limited to one thing because you came in with this one thing, So yeah.
I waited very, very late to start applying 1L year, and that's something I would not caution anyone to do. In fact, the sooner the better. If you can get into your career services offices and ask them, especially 1L year, when do I need to start applying?
Yes.
Because as a first-gen student, I didn't even know that in October, November, people are already sending out applications. That was mind-blowing to me. I had no clue. I think I waited until January, February to even start applying, and got my job around March, April towards the end. I ended up in in-house, so that was fun. But definitely would not recommend that. Make sure you are connecting with your career services and really figuring out those deadlines on when you should be applying to things. Do not miss that.
Yeah. If you're a black woman, male watching this right now, is that with big law comes diversity fellowships, and I felt like I was behind the ball on that. And not necessarily that I wanted to take the opportunity, but it's about knowing about the opportunity. Knowing that somebody is not only going to pay you for working next summer, but also give you $15,000 just because you're a diverse applicant. And to me, that's not advertised, so that's something I would definitely be on, because usually as a person of color, as a first generation student, you don't have all the resources necessary. So when these resources are available to you and no one tells you about them and you're unaware of them, you kind of start feeling left out and behind. So I would definitely try to get on the job track early and apply for as many diversity fellowships if that's the route you want to take.
How did being a Black law student or a Black first generation law student impact you in your journey in law school?
That's a
You
great
know,
question.
I can start off by saying, so I'm a first generation law student, a first generation college student. And you know, with going to college, it comes like a certain, like, oh my gosh, you're so smart. And not saying I'm not smart, but when you're struggling in law school and you talk to people outside of law school about your experience, it's like, oh, you got this, you're smart, you got it. And it's just like, you don't understand what I'm doing, you're not getting it. So that's one thing that I feel like really came with being a first generation law student, is that the people around me don't get the struggle, they don't get what I'm going through, and it kind of made it hard, which is why it was good for me to find friends in law school who understood, like, okay, it has nothing to do with me being smart or whatever smart means. It's about, it's just stressful, and they got it, they understood what I was going through.
Yeah, I'd say just to add to that, I think just having a community of other people that kind of look like you and share the same experiences as you is very important. Just even in classes, being one of the few people that look like you, just being a minority. A lot of times in law school, some of the topics or things that you learn about are a little triggering, being a minority student, and a lot of times it's not taught in the way that necessarily, I guess, you would want it to be taught, right? Or you hear opinions from other people that you may view as ignorant or not fully informed, and so it becomes frustrating a lot of the times. And so I think that just sometimes, like, having other people who also feel those same things is great, because you can vent to them and be like, girl, did you hear this? It's like, it kind of makes you feel, again, like Jasmine said earlier, like validated, you know what I mean? And it helps you with like developing, I guess, how to deal with those sorts of difficult conversations with those people, because the reality is when you get actually into like the real world, you're gonna have to deal with a lot of people that have those mindsets. So I think that that's a challenge, but sometimes having other people that also go through the same thing is very important, because you can kind of talk through it, you can kind of work through it together, and then you just kind of work on developing that skill. So
Yeah, I think also our experience is unique because we go to a predominantly white institution, and with going to PWI, there's a lack of acknowledgement on current events that are going on. I know Jasmine, one all year, orchestrated like a great, almost like a silent protest in a way, where we all wore black in protest of the prosecution not bringing charges towards, or the grand jury not bringing charges towards Breonna Taylor. And so just knowing that there's a community at whatever law school you choose, that's a big thing that goes in part of where you choose to go to school, because I'm sure it's probably different on different campuses, but just knowing that like you're not alone. I do feel like though with the legal profession, get ready, like if you're a black man or woman, it'll be smaller. It'll be smaller for you to find that community, but you definitely need to seek them out, and there is someone else in the room, hopefully, that looks like you, and if there's not,
Bar associations.
call your friends.
Call
to
your
go to law
friends.
school.
There's so many people that need to be in law school that are not in law school. I'm looking around and I'm like, wow, they really are gatekeeping this information. This is something that every citizen of the United States should know. Why am I just finding out about this at 24 years old, that this is how you should interact with police? Shout out Crim Pro. Shout out criminal procedure.
Another poverty reach out to me directly to be like, are you okay? Do you need an internship? Do you need a job? I can help you. And so the first generation student who really had no clue what was happening, that brings me a lot of comfort because sometimes it's really about like, if you know what to do kind of thing.
If you could do it all again, would you?
No.
I'm right there, right there.
Oh my god. I was gonna say yes.
I would say yes.
I would do it again.
I will not do this again.
I
I'm
would
gonna
do
finish, but I'm not gonna do this again.
That's how I feel. Let's get to the
Yeah.
result.
Okay,
But
I
just
get what
going
you're
through this
saying.
again, no.
No, I feel
Well,
like
tell us why. Why do y'all say yeah?
Yeah.
Why do y'all say yeah?
Because I feel like I've learned so much about myself,
Yeah.
and with this experience, it's very interpersonal.
Yeah.
You have a lot of soul searching that goes on, like when you're crying after a contract's midterm, and you're like, am I meant to be here?
Yeah.
And you finally figure out, like, no, you have a conversation with such and such, or you meet someone and you become enthralled or passionate about an area that you never thought you never even knew about before. The information that you learn in law school, like, there's a reason why there's only a subset of society of lawyers. It feels like you're indoctrinated into this whole new set.
I said no, not necessarily because I don't appreciate what being in law school has done and is doing for me. This is something I've dreamed about for many years, so I'm very happy and honored and privileged to be in this position. But to be completely honest, if I woke up today and y'all told me I had to go back to last year, August, it's a no. I'm not doing it again. But I look forward to finishing and achieving all my legal goals. But repeating this, don't know about that.
That's fair.
I second that.
Oh no. I mean, I would do it again only because one, I like to learn. Like, that's nerdy to say, but it was fun. No, because really, how many times have we read things that we would have never otherwise got to see? Like, that to me is really cool. And plus, I didn't